Nicole. Hello, this is Jeffrey Mangus with Books Build Leaders podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Today we have a great ghostwriter, Nicole Evelina, and she is I was really excited to have her on, and I'm really excited to dive into some great topics today. Welcome, Nicolina.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. So, yeah, I mean, this show is, I love talking to new ghostwriters and experienced ghostwriters, and because everyone comes to the industry from different perspectives. So, if you don't mind, how did you get started in ghostwriting? How did it come about? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, my story, I won't say is unique, but I think it may be a little unusual. My day job is actually in marketing. That's what I've done for over 20 years. And so I actually started ghostwriting in the corporate world. I've written for at least 4 healthcare CEOs, countless leaders within healthcare throughout my career, everything from speeches, articles, presentations, pretty much everything that you can think of that is not novel length or book length.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where I got started. And then within the last 2 years, I've really started thinking about, okay, maybe ghostwriting, is a transition that I want to make. And I ended up, I joined Gotham Ghostwriters a while back. And then my agent actually hooked me up with Kevin Anderson and Associates.
Yes.
Now I'm still considered a freelancer. She has nothing to do with my work through them. But I have my first ghostwriting job now under Kevin Anderson, and I'm working on a historical fiction novel. So I'm very excited.
I'm a member of Gotham as well, and also Kevin Anderson, and I think Kevin Anderson they're a great company.
Definitely.
I'm on my 3rd project with them, and it's been great. Working with the editors.
Yes.
That's what I love most about them is working with their top editors, and it does everything but improve your skill set, improve your knowledge of the publishing industry, and also you get to help authors get paid and help authors bring books to the world. So it's a good thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. They're very professional, and I really like their process because they've really got it honed. I'm sure that's happened over time, and you don't have to wonder what's coming next because you know.
Right, exactly right. It's kind of a comforting thing. Know that you got that under your belt. Coming from the corporate world and switching into, this is your first book, you say, your first actual book?
My first ghostwritten book. I've written 11 books under my own name.
You have 11 books under your own name. That's great. Were those nonfiction or fiction? Just
Both.
Curious. Both. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm a wide variety type person. My nonfiction ranges from biography, literary criticism, pop culture, corporate history, almost everything you can think of. I have a chapter in an academic book on ethics in our theory and legend, which is a very bizarre niche topic.
I would have never thought about that. That's great. Good for you.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, with that said, what do you love most about, do you consider yourself a generalist? What do you love being that, or do you think you're more of a niche down? What do you love about ghostwriting in general so far?
Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience yet. I'm hoping to kind of broaden, what I do. I mean, I love writing historical fiction, don't get me wrong, but I'm interested in writing business books because my undergraduate degree is in business. I'm certified by the International Association of Business Communicators, and there's a lot of things that I've learned through my time in the corporate world that I think would be applicable in being a ghostwriter. Even if it's not a subject where I'm the subject matter expert, that's what the author is there for.
Right.
But I'm familiar with that world, with those terms, how those type of people think. So that really interests me in kind of expanding in the future. I will always take a historical fiction project because that is where my heart is.
That's great. I love that. And right there, you said it. I mean, you got to follow your gut and your heart. And if that's your wheelhouse and you enjoy doing it, and why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, with me, I've written a lot of business books, and oddly, and I'll say this, I don't talk about this a lot, but 85, I say, actually, it's probably about 80%. 80% of the books that I've ghostwritten have been for women.
Really?
Yes, it's a fact. And I don't know how that works out, but
Mhm.
somehow I get the jobs and they end up being, leadership women, really powerful, influential women who, just know what they want, and they hire me, and we go for it. And I love working with these type of people. I mean, whether man or woman, but I love writing business books. And I find it, that again, every business book has a story.
Yes.
The person who's writing it always has something they've been through. They read through challenges, or all that kind of thing. And I find it that's where I love to get into. Business is business. I mean, everything from return on investment to find whatever that is, and thought leadership and everything. And I love all of that, but I love the stories. I love hearing how someone overcame a challenge that most people probably wouldn't have been able to do, and then bring it to the page. It's really, really fun to do that.
Yeah.
But I do find historical fiction very interesting. I love reading them. I love reading historical fiction. I'm actually writing a novel myself right now, and it kind of has some, it's kind of historical fiction as well, because there's a lot of true stories in it. So it's interesting. But now, now that you've written 11 books, and you've worked with Kevin Anderson Associates and working with the client, and this book, it's a historical fiction book for that client. That's
Yes.
correct. Okay,
Yes.
we'll make sure I had it right. So with that, is there a unique interviewing process that you follow, or something that you find that's helpful to you with your author on that?
I think, well, I was very lucky with the client in this case. She had already done a little bit of writing, so I could see kind of the voice she was going for.
Okay.
She did a lot of research, and then I did more research on top of it, because that's just how I roll. I feel like
Do you love research?
I do.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. And we ended up, it was one of those fortuitous things that I was going on a trip to go to the location, which really doesn't exist anymore, but I still feel like getting the energy of a place is very important.
Yeah.
And she ended up being in town, that same town, at the same time. So we actually went on a tour together of the area.
Wow.
And to have that kind of interaction, and of course, I don't expect that for every job, but for my first one, to have that kind of kismet is just, it's really exciting to me, because it kind of helped us in a way share a brain, because that's kind of
Absolutely, yeah.
what ghostwriters do.
Yeah, well, you tapped on something I wanted to talk about. Is, if you are a new author here, listening to this podcast, and you're considering hiring a ghostwriter, what she just brought to the table was how she was able to, she immersed herself not only in the work, but you went to the location. This is, I applaud you on that. I have went to and met authors in person before too. I've traveled to Chicago and different areas and cities, and that's part of the immersive process in learning not only the author, but also how to get to know them, and how to get to know them, and as the collaboration. Did you find that helpful when you were able to meet? You found that synergy there?
Definitely. Yeah. There, as much as, I mean, we had like weekly and then every other week meetings, strategy sessions leading up to that point, but being able to really be in person and stand there and talk to her,
Yes.
and even just listen to the way she talks, the writing voice a lot of times is similar, I have found, to the way people speak. And just to get to know that, I'm trained in speech writing. I have a graduate degree in media communications, public relations. And when you learn speech writing, that is one thing you learn, is to hear the voice of the person who is speaking in your head while you're writing, so you can kind of hear how it's going to be delivered. Well, in this case, you're just writing it down for people to read rather than for it to be spoken.
Right.
And it's to me, it's still the same process. So the better you can get to know the client, I think the better off you are.
I love that. That really resonates with me. I'll tell you why. Because in my life, I was a professional musician. I toured the country. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
No.
yeah, I toured the country. I was in Los Angeles, California, and Hollywood for about 5 years, and the Sunset Strip and all of that.
Ooh.
But the reason I say that is I use that music creativity every single day in my ghostwriting, because it's not just about interviewing an author, and it's not just about. Now I do listen listen with compassion. I really listen to authors, but it's about when I go to work. I'm able to use that musical muscle of recalling chords and notes and creating all that stuff. And I use that musical muscle to recall the author's face, how they speak, their diction, their tone, their style. And again, this is all the big ball of wax. It's all involved in immersing yourself into the author's world. And this is where our value comes in as a ghostwriter. And people, because there's usually big topics are, fees, ethical aspects of ghostwriting, that kind of thing. And being able to get along with an author is very important. But our fees, the value is where, we bring to the table all of these things we're doing, immersing ourselves, researching your life, researching your area of interest, going there. I mean, these are all important things that authors need to take into consideration when we're talking about fees and paying ghostwriters in what we do. So I'm really glad you brought that up, and I love that you do that as well. You recall that. I mean, people talk about, I've written about it before, and that it's like there's no writer's block in my. It doesn't exist. It doesn't even exist. I go to work every single day. I grab a cup of coffee, and I come into my office, and I know what I'm working on because I know I have the author's images in my head. I know the topic I'm working on the page, and I go with it. I go for it, and and I'm sure you do the same thing. And that's where the voice capture comes into play. It really is. Yes, it's about how they speak, the mannerisms they use, their emotions, capturing their emotions. Did they cry?
Definitely.
How did they feel during that time? So these are all things that we're doing as ghostwriters for you. If you're an author listening to this podcast, these are things we're doing in the back end that you don't see, right? So I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's good stuff.
You're welcome.
But so let me ask you this question. As a new ghost, I mean, you've got an experience, but I'm saying, but you're considering yourself a new ghost, and that's great.
Right.
What disadvantages have you found in the ghostwriting industry that you experience in today's society? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the biggest one when you're new is it's kind of like getting a job out of college. You need experience, and I completely understand this from the author's perspective. Authors are more reticent to take on a new ghostwriter versus somebody who has a proven track record.
Right.
And like I said, I totally understand why, but it's kind of a catch-22 where you just have to explain as best you can why you feel like you're right for that project. Hopefully they will feel the same way. And, you just have to build over time and develop a thick skin if you don't have one already, because if it's not this project, it will be the next one. And, but you also have to be prepared for rejection, just like, if you're an author yourself, when you go to query or when your agent goes out on submission with your book, you're going to get a lot of rejections.
Absolutely.
So it's just part of the industry, regardless of what part you're in.
I think with me, if you're a new ghostwriter listening to this podcast, it's a catch-22. It's very difficult to market yourself when you're supposed to hold confidentiality agreements with authors and past books and that kind of thing. So how I get around that is not only I ask for permission in my contract, but I also, if I don't get permission, I detail a list. I make a list of the people that I worked with, but I never name them, and I never name the book. I always say, I worked with a Fortune 500 CEO of whatever. I really detail it down, but without giving away the name and the farm, and also say this book was traditionally written with a certain publisher, or if it was with a hybrid, or if it was self-published. I make that known as well. Yes. And that really is a way to get around it, because when you have a bulleted list of your experience, people are going to trust you, and hopefully it just comes down to, sometimes it has to be the trust factor. There has to be, okay, you're going to have to trust this person is saying the right things, and telling you the truth. And it just boils down to that. And again, it goes back to we talked about earlier in the podcast, is getting along with our authors, the collaboration, not every book project. I mean, for example, I met with an author a couple of weeks ago, fine gentleman, fine person, but I just knew in my gut it just wasn't going to be right for 6 months, because we're most projects are 8 months, and even though the money was probably going to be fantastic, I just didn't take the project. I just could not get myself. I had to listen to my gut. And the author, if you're a new author here, the same with a ghost. If you're looking for a ghostwriter, go with your gut. Don't just go with if it's a low fee, if it's something, yeah, you might save a few bucks, but what if you got to get along with that person. It's got your personality's got to mesh. And for you to meet your author on site and you said you had this synergy, that was critical probably to this project, because
Definitely.
you know them, you've met them in person, and now you can recall that person's inflections and everything in the work. That's really great. But these are all important things. I'm glad we brought it up and talked about it. In your world that you're experiencing right now with this new project, is there any constant challenges that you find that you're facing all the time? You want to talk about something like that?
I'm trying to think. We're early on in the process. We've gone through strategy. We've approved the outline. And I've done the prologue in the first chapter. So
Okay.
that's the first kind of milestone. And now the editors are looking at everything. For me right now, because of the way I'm doing it with a full-time job, time is my biggest challenge.
That's your challenge. Okay.
Yeah. And balancing things. But like I said, I'm hoping to transition to where I can ghostwrite full time. So I think at that point it'll be more of like project particular things, like if there's a point where we're having a hard time agreeing on, the voice, or they feel like this is important, and just that, more of that type of thing.
Right. Exactly. I know in my world, the challenge I have is like sometimes when, the author will start out gung ho, just, hit it. And I'm always gung ho. I hit every project 110%. I mean,
Definitely.
all the time. But often the challenge is when you're in the middle of it, things slow down on their end, right? They're traveling, the things are like that. And that's why, if you're an author here listening to the podcast, please take in mind, if you're hiring a ghost, be committed to the project. Dive yourself in. Just like, I'm sure you give 110%, I'm sure, to this project and everything you've done in the past. And I do the same thing. I'm bringing 110, so I'm hoping that, and I'm expecting the author to bring, 110 as well. So that's a challenge though, and it's a challenge that sometimes you got to pull the rope and get them, keep tugging them back to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a job like anything else. I mean, if you have a 9-to-5 job, hopefully you're going to show up, or whether it's virtually or in person, ready to go, ready to do everything that you can, to make that, whatever your assignments are, as good as possible.
That's
and
right.
it's the same thing with ghostwriting. And you expect certain things of your supervisors in a regular job, and it's the same thing with your clients in ghostwriting. So it's an equal partnership in my mind.
I agree with that. And that's, in my mind, it's the exact same thing. That's what, going back to what we talked about. It's, a ghostwriter and author, it's a partnership. And some people are afraid to say that word, partnership. I don't want a partner. I want a writer. Well, trust me, every author I've ever written for, we end up being really close and become good friends because of all of the shared confidentiality, confidential stuff. And sharing moments of epiphany, moments of clarity, I love that about that. And that goes to my next question. What do you love most about ghostwriting? What is it? What are the few things that you truly love about it that really keeps you going?
I love being able to give voice to stories that otherwise wouldn't be told, regardless of whether it's through ghostwriting or through my own writing. I'll get to my own in just a second, but the ghostwriter, the author who comes to you as a client, as a ghostwriter, they come because they don't feel like they, in some way, shape, or form, have the ability to do it themselves.
That's right.
And if they didn't have you or whoever, they're, another ghostwriter, that story wouldn't be told. It would languish. And that is something I just can't abide it. I feel like, if you have a story that you feel like needs to be told, it should be.
Yes.
And, it's the collaboration is, it's a magical thing. It really is, because if it's nonfiction, like let's say it's a memoir or something like that, people are telling you about, the highs and lows of their life, and they're trusting you with this amazing story with their journey. And you have a responsibility to then convey it, in a respectful, accurate, and also page turning way, so that people are willing to read it. And when, in fiction, it's kind of the same thing, because there's always a reason that they want that story to be told. Maybe something happened that's particular that inspired it, or, they heard about it and it was something that they just don't see out there, that they've want it to be told.
Right.
And that's, that's my big motivation, is getting those unspoken stories out there. In my own writing, I tend to write biographical historical fiction, and I choose the stories of women that either haven't been told well, in my mind,
Okay.
or haven't been told at all, which
Yeah.
is a very difficult thing to do, because publishing industry wants known names.
That's
And
it's very true.
so, it's like I've almost set myself up, but it's something I'm so passionate about, that I feel like it's my mission, to tell those untold stories. And when I can help somebody else do that otherwise wouldn't be able to, to me, it's very fulfilling.
Absolutely. I mean, just these alone, I agree with you. My writing, I'm on a mission, right? And these podcasts, the books I've written, I've always been a person that's, willing to help others. I want to help others. It's just in my DNA. And that's the whole goal, is to help others, educate others on not only the process, but to tell their stories, with these books. You're right. I love telling the stories as well. It's my responsibility. It's a ghostwriter's responsibility to tell it accurately, correctly, make it engaging, and make it page turning. And that may sound like a lot of pressure on, if you're a new ghostwriter out there, but trust me, that's part of the job. And if you don't know how to tell a story, I encourage you, learn all you can, take storytelling classes, go to fiction writing class, whatever, because every story, whether it's nonfiction, and this to be true, in business, there's always an arc. There's still an arc in every story, right?
Definitely.
There's always a beginning. There's always something that happened that's causing conflict, and next thing you know, then it either resolves, or there's always that. And it's a ghostwriter's responsibility, and that's why it goes back to, I talk about being in a project 110%. You cannot deliver that kind of work and giving it 50%. You just can't. It's impossible. Right. So that's where I take pride in my work, and I know you do as well, and into delivering the best that we possibly can in these stories, and bringing these people's lives to the page. And that's where the value comes into play with us.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I have a belief that my background as a fiction writer is also very helpful, even if I'm writing a nonfiction book, because again, like you said, the basics of stories don't change. I found that out when I wrote a biography. You still have characters, you still have plot, you still have setting, all of those things. You just write it differently.
That's right.
Because you can't embellish like you can in fiction.
That's true. Memoirs have characters. People in those people's lives are characters. That's exactly right. It's great stuff. Yeah. Yep. Good stuff. Well, it's been great having you today. I want to ask you, how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in working with you? How can they get in touch?
My website is actually NicoleEvelina.com. There are 2 E's in the middle, the end of Nicole, the beginning of Evelina. So just want to make that clear. Okay. My email address is nicole.evelina@att.net. Okay. I am eventually, hopefully within the next month or so, going to be setting up a website dedicated to ghostwriting, what I'm calling being a different type of author's assistant, not necessarily doing social media, that type of thing that you think of, but writing nonfiction book proposals, helping with marketing, because I have 20 years of experience.
Absolutely.
Any kind of ghostwriting, that type of a thing. That company is going to be called Heart of the Story, H-A-R-T, I can spell, of the story, because I'm getting married and my last name is going to be Hart, H-A-R-T.
Oh, congratulations. Good for you. So, that's great.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good stuff. Well, It's been great having you. I really enjoyed our conversation, and we'll do it again, and we really will. And next time we'll we'll maybe find a nice, good topic to talk about. And we'll figure that out. But it's been a pleasure. So
I love that. Thank you.
welcome. This is Jeffrey Mangus with Books Build Leaders podcast. If you're here and listening to this podcast, you enjoyed it, please subscribe below and share this with any like-minded people who might be wanting to write a book. Thanks a lot and have a great day.